We'll be starting the session in just a moment. If you have any connection or technical issues, try refreshing your browser first. If this doesn't work, please go to the Help Desk by clicking Sessions on the left, or click the People tab on the right and search Help Desk to send a private message. Thank you so much for joining us.
Welcome back, everyone, to our last day of Worlds of Flavor. This week has gone by so fast, hasn't it? Way too fast, if you ask me. How many of you stayed up late last night for our evening sessions? It was so worth it, wasn't it? And have you been practicing your flamenco moves? If you have, when we asked you to share your video during the cook-along today, you can also throw a little move in there. So first, please join me in thanking our sponsors who make it possible to offer this program tuition-free, and visit them in a sponsor expo during the break and reception today. We have more polls for you, starting with our first one. Where in the world are you drawing the most inspiration from for your menu? So go to the right of your screen and answer away. And don't forget the scavenger hunt. A final reminder for social media: post your screenshots on Instagram and tag us at CIA Industry Leadership and our presenters, whose handles you can find at the end of their Hop in bio using the hashtag CIAWOF. And another reminder that you can find all of the recipes, video, presentations, etc. at worldsoflavor.com. Look for 2020 resources using the password you received this week. And video of all of the conference sessions will also be posted there as they become available. Our final activity today will be a cook-along hosted by Chandra Ram and Lauren Nalick. We'll make naan and pide and their fillings. So we hope that you made your doughs last night, but still follow along if you didn't, because we promise you it's going to be super fun, and you'll also learn a lot in the process. And there's also a food truck and live wood fire involved. You don't want to miss that. So before the cook-along, we'll be heading to Mexico, Thailand, Sri Lanka, and Ethiopia, as you can see on the screen, for a day full of inspirations from places you might already know and others you still need to discover. Put your questions in the chat as we go, interact with each other in there too, and continue showering our presenters with the attention you've showed them all week, which has been so wonderful for them in such trying times. Without further ado, let's embark on our first adventure. Anyone else besides me is really planning to head to Mexico as soon as we can travel again? Our next presenter is a big reason why. Francisco de Santiago, a Mexico City native, has been leading cultural and culinary tours for 2 decades. He's the Mexico City guide for Culinary Backstreets and leads taco tours for them. And you might also have seen him on Taco Chronicles on Netflix, or in the CIA's own World Culinary Arts DVD series, shot in his hometown. I've been fortunate to eat a lot of tacos with Paco, among other delicious things that include tortas that are only served after lucha libre matches, because that's a kind of insider knowledge that you get with Paco. To eat with him is to learn not only about food, but about the history and culture of a magical country. We'll start with a video tour, and then Paco will join us live, so put any questions you have in the chat while we're watching. Let's roll it.
Hola amigos, thank you for watching this Paco de Santiago trip to Mexico City food scene. We are going to discover about tacos, about some antojitos mexicanos. The church behind me is known as Santo Tomás La Palma. We are in the heart of the zone known as Mercado de la Merced, which is a complex of different buildings, and we are about to visit the interior of the main building known as Nave Mayor. Come with me and let's discover in this Worlds of Flavor conference about the street food of Mexico City. Thank you for watching. My name is Francisco de Santiago. Gracias. Buenos días, estoy haciendo una transmisión desde el mercado de Xochimilco, el trabajo durísimo de los tours de comida. No te vayas, aquí estamos viendo cómo se está preparando la cecina de Yecapixtla, la carne enchilada, aquí nos van a dar un taquito y la longaniza de cariño mexicano. This is already ready. Tenemos las diferentes. Yo quiero una para mí. Si one is mine, I'm not sharing. Aquí tenemos papa, frijoles, salsa de guacamole, salsa roja. Esta es cebolla morada con chile manzano, pico de gallo. Yeah, try the smashed potatoes. They are good. So I'm doing a transmission for my Facebook. What do you think? What do you think about your visit to Mexico City?
It's been awesome. It's been really good. Really good food.
And where are you from? Where do you live?
San Francisco.
San Francisco, de sunny California. Bon appetit. We say buen provecho when we are eating in a place or arriving or leaving. We say buen provecho, something like enjoy your meal. Bueno, pues los dejo, muchachos, estoy muy ocupado. Les ruego que no me quiten el tiempo. Miren cómo se corta la cecina para echarla al comalito. Ahí está, miren nada más los cortes. Muchas gracias. Se va al comal directo. Y bueno, les dejo una linda foto de mi taco de cecina. Y nos vemos, estamos en contacto. Muchas gracias.
There's something about the music and the atmosphere. That's such the perfect way to start the day. Hola, Paco.
Buenos días. How are you doing?
Great. So the taco that is actually the most popular taco in Mexico City is not in the video. Tell us what that is. What is that taco?
Yeah, of course. The most popular taco, it is called pastor, and it is prepared with pork meat, and then it's marinated with spices and condiments, and then it is set in this kind of like gyro or shawarma vertical pit, originally cooked through charcoal, and it's a favorite of the night. It's a taco that belongs to the night. We all love it in Mexico because it has this great ingredient, which is the additional piece of very fresh pineapple that most of the time the taquero you just shaves from the top of the pit, and then the piece of pineapple flies and gets into the little taco, and that's delicious. So, but I decided not to include it in the video because, you know, the universe of tacos in Mexico City is really infinite. No, there are so many.
Do you know how many varieties there are?
Well, no, I have eaten a lot of them, but no, I haven't numbered. I guess there are so many.
And do taquerías create their own also, or do they stay within a certain repertoire of classic tacos?
Well, there are several variations. Like people who are very orthodox, they claim that pastor tacos, for instance, they should have the piece of pineapple for sure. If it doesn't have the pineapple, they say it's not a pastor. But the truth is that there are at least 3 ways of prepare the pastor tacos in Mexico City, and one of them, which is my one of my favorites, is a roll kind of pastor. You know, they don't give you the open tortilla with the meat on top, but they just roll it, and they have put inside already the salsa. So you just take the taco and eat it like a fried, like it were a fried taco, no? It's rolled, and they don't use the pineapple. So and nevertheless, it tastes delicious. So I guess it's just a matter of taste and preferences, no?
So speaking of preference, what is your favorite taco?
Well, I like suadero a lot because it's the type of taco that you cannot find everywhere else. No, it's a taco made of the brisket part of the beef or flank. No, and it's a very interesting meat because you can buy it very cheap in the butchers because it's the kind of meat that it needs a longer preparation. No, it needs to get cooked slowly, and because of that reason, it's cheaper than other cuts of beef, and it's perfect for tacos because it combines, you know, this meaty consistency with a little bit of fat, and that combination when it gets confit in the choricera, which is this round installation that you saw in the video, is unique. No, that flavor is the best. Those are my favorite ones.
And then what's another street food that people might not be familiar with? Something that next time anyone in our audience goes to Mexico City, they should absolutely look for because they may never have had it.
Well, it is popular in, nearby public markets like Merced, Sonora, the Jamaica that we saw in the video as well. It is common that, people get to the mercados trying to find a cheap food, no, the cheapest they can get. Many of the people who live in the city, they weren't born in the city really. They came from the countryside, run away from poverty and trying to find a way to make a living in the city. So they look for the cheapest. In not many years ago, there were many parts of the cow, for instance, like the head or the tail, the oxtail, that they were really cheap. And so people like to eat beef head tacos, which are another delicacy in Mexico City streets. No, those beef head tacos are more something that you can eat in the middle of the day. No.
Mm-hmm. So we have 1 minute left, and I want to ask you about this great bottle of mezcal that I know you keep behind you in your cantina. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we are here at my home. You're very welcome, everybody. Welcome to Mexico City and my house. And this is Cantina Los Panchones. You are invited next time you visit Mexico. So I can give you a sip of this great mezcal. This is a very interesting bottle made of a straw. And I'm going to get it closer to the camera maybe so you can see the tiger on it. This is mezcal from Guerrero, from a town called Tixtla. And they create this wonderful bottle to celebrate the fight of the tiger and the tlacololero. This gentleman here with a beautiful hat is a tlacololero, and people really dress like this tlacololero in the festivals of Guerrero. And their labor is to get away the tigers from the fields so they don't need the crops.
Wonderful. Paco, such a pleasure to see you. And I really hope that everyone watching will go to Mexico City and take a tour with you and get to learn and have some great eating time with you.
Well, you're very welcome. I hope we would have more time, but you are very welcome to Mexico City. And thank you very much for the chance to be in your very interesting conference and festival. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Paco. And Paco will be in the stage chat. So if you want his recommendations for best taco places, feel free to ask him there too. It's now my pleasure to welcome back to the stage my co-host, Jackie Chi, Director of Programs and Special Projects for the Strategic Initiatives Group. Hi, Jackie.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you so much. And I am overwhelmed with all the tacos that I saw in that video and can't wait to actually go try them myself one day. I'm thrilled to be moderating our next session, exploring flavor inspiration from India, Sri Lanka, and Ethiopia. First up, let's head over to South Asia by way of Bangkok with Garima Arora, who uses traditional and forgotten Indian cooking techniques to prepare local Thai ingredients at her restaurant Ga. Ga received a Michelin star in 2019, making Garima the first Indian woman ever to get a Michelin star. So we are so honored to have her joining us today to talk about building umami in vegetarian dishes. Hello, Garima.
Hello, Jacqueline. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
I know we've got a couple of videos that you're going to queue up. I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you so much. Well, hello to everybody all over the world, wherever you guys are tuning in from. Thank you for having me over, and thank you for listening to me for the next 10-15 minutes or so, talking a little bit about India, the cuisines of India, and how we as Indian cooks are so apt at drawing umami from vegetables, or cooking with vegetables and not having to miss meat at all. Before I get into, well, so to speak, the meat of my talk, let me just tell you a little bit about how I came to discover this really potent arsenal that we have in our culinary heritage back home. You know, how we are able to cook so easily with vegetables, and how I find some home cooks around the world sometimes find it a little bit difficult to deal with it. You know, I so many times see give a cook a piece of steak, and it's so easy to cook with it. Give them a pumpkin, and it becomes challenging sometimes. But so I've been cooking for 13 odd years professionally, any case. I had the chance to spend a lot of time in these 13 years cooking in some of the best and most competitive kitchens in the world. Growing up, I was always fascinated with what was out there. Being a kid in the 90s in India, not having a lot of access to imported ingredients and foods, I always wanted to get out and eat more and learn more and see what the world was cooking. And I did that 14 years ago. I left India, and since then never called it home. And actually, it was through my travels while I was trying to, as I was getting away from home, I was also at the same time discovering how special it was to be from India and how it helped my culinary profession to such a large extent, and how I discovered all these amazing tools and techniques that were part of Indian cooking and heritage. Before we get into, well, the thing is, there's so much to talk about vegetables in Indian cuisine and how we are so fond of cooking with them. I'm going to try to condense this in the next 10 minutes, and hopefully we're able to cover the basics. And if you have time, if you have questions, please feel free to just ask them and interject whenever you feel like it. Before we begin the vegetable part of it, why do we like to eat meat so much? Why do we crave meat so much? I swear my husband even would not go without meat in a meal. And I sometimes really wonder why that is. The flavors of meat, I think, are associated with one of the 5 tastes that we are all well versed with: sweet, salty, sour, bitter, and umami. There is a big connection between meat and umami. Umami as a flavor and meat are like a match made in heaven, if you will. The flavor umami, it signifies the first or the most basic flavor we begin to identify as children. It is the first taste of food that a child identifies, and growing up, it is we continue to chase it as it signifies nutrition, a feeling of comfort and fullness. It's also evolutionary. It is self-preserving. Some research has shown that when the body doesn't get at least 15% of the calories through umami-rich food or meat, it begins to crave it. Sure, there's no denying the flavors of meat and how it has so many fans around the world, but it begs the question: what happens in cultures where meat is, well, either forbidden due to religious reasons or is simply not available due to the climatic conditions, due to their history, or how they've just eaten for so many years leading up to that moment? If the theory is that it's the feeling that meat generates, and that's the feeling that a human craves or somebody craves or wants to satiate, I think an argument can be made that if those feelings can be satiated with another ingredient or another way, then it's not really meat that you're craving, but it's also a feeling that you're craving. And I strongly believe that taste is a lot to do with emotions, a lot to do with how food makes us feel, and as much as it does with the flavor itself. So if it's umami that one is craving, if it's calorie satisfaction or flavor-based satisfaction and nutrition that a human is craving, I believe vegetables have that innate possibility to provide its consumer just that. And I think in Indian cuisine, we have been able to achieve this through 5 basic points. And I always try to apply these 5 basic points when we are cooking at the restaurant. In fact, we recently just launched, given the circumstances, a breakfast spot in the city, which is, honestly, I didn't even think about it for all this time, is 99% vegetarian breakfast, and honest to God, nobody ever misses the meat. And for me, I think I never looked at it as a challenge till somebody mentioned it to me. It is so natural that we didn't even think about it before we started cooking that way. Anyway, getting to the 5 points and sharing with you how we try umami from vegetables. Let me begin with a short introduction with the first point right here. I have a little fun video for you to watch, so you don't have to just see me mumble. So, well, that's fats. That's fats for you. I think fat has the unique ability to absorb and preserve flavors, of course. Oil has often, we often infuse oil with herbs and spices. Fat also contains compounds that lend specific flavors of their own. The way fat coats the tongue, it allows flavors to linger for a longer time. If you enjoy Indian food as much as I do, and of course, we have different variations of Indian food across the world. Not all of them are something I would stand behind, but it's true. Indian food lingers for a really long time on the tongue, and I think it's a lot to do with the use of fat and where in the cooking process we actually begin using the fat. Let me, for example, tell you that if you were to be making a vegetable or a sabji or a dal, as it were, you would always begin the cooking process with a hot skillet, pan, pot, and a choice of fat. Different regions in India, different geographical regions in India use different kind of fats. If you were to be eating, say, in the northeastern part of India, in Bengal, you would be using mustard oil. If you were to be eating down south in India, of course, you would be using coconut oil. A lot of ghee, clarified butter in the northern part of the country. And I think this is the first basis of developing flavor or developing depth in cooking. You start with a fat and a flavor of your choice. So if you were cooking with a vegetable, depending on how you would be building flavors, and I will come across and bind it all together at the end, hopefully. But the first point of beginning would definitely be fats and the choice of fat that you would use for this cooking. And the second step in the process of treating a vegetable, once you have chosen your fat of choice, would be what's coming up next. Now, this is a very curious word in Indian cooking, which is called bhuno. I think it loosely translates into roasting of a base spice, or roasting of masala in English. I get roasting, or if we were to get a little bit scientific about it, the Maillard reaction, the caramelization of sugars in meat, if it were, and in this case vegetables, as it were, gives another layer and another dimension to how we cook with vegetables in Indian cooking. It's extremely interesting because this is always for me the second point, or the second base that you build your dish with, and it's the bhunoing, or it's the roasting of spices that creates this extremely long and extremely umami flavor, which will always be the base flavor of a vegetarian dish in India. And I want to bring to your notice a very curious phenomenon that occurs in Indian cooking, which is called negative food pairing. If you are familiar with food pairing, it is the assumptions that ingredients that go in a recipe together tend to share in common flavor compounds that occur more often, meaning ingredients that taste similar tend to appear together in recipes more often. In Indian cuisine or Indian cooking, the exact opposite happens. Ingredients in an Indian recipe have the least amount of flavor compounds in common, making Indian cooking high in negative food pairing instead of food pairing, as it may happen in Western cuisine or Western cooking. This negative food pairing, I think, is the basis of this unusual Maillard reaction. For example, ginger garlic paste. A ginger garlic paste is probably the basis of starting off after fats, any curry or any vegetable or any dal or any Indian dish that you might be cooking. If you were to think about it, if you were to start a session of cooking with just ginger, or a recipe with just ginger or just garlic, it would taste very different from when you would put ginger and garlic together. And the further roasting of this ginger garlic combination, I think, gives you a very, very unique and a very umami rich and a very savory rich flavor and taste. Which brings me to, well, the next culprit in Indian cooking, which is, of course, spices. So we all know, guys, I'm running short on time. I can see that. So I'm going to try to wrap this up very quickly. To put it into perspective, I think spices is what gives Indian food its unique and distinct flavor. And it is also the reason why it is so rich in layers, and it is so almost rebellious in nature. The negative food pairing, which I talk about, the reason why it occurs is because of spices. The way we taste is very peculiar. You would think that you use your tongue to taste, but let me tell you something. Your tongue is only 20% of how you taste. It's almost 80% of your tasting is actually happening through your nose, or your upper part of your nose, which is the upper part of your olfactory system, where smells actually go. And spices have a very, very large role to play with it. And that is the fourth way that we add flavor to Indian vegetable cooking. And the next would be, of course, the addition of creams and stocks and sauces, and sometimes even simply just water. And finally, my favorite would be the grill and the fire. My God, I have so much more to say. All right, so very quickly, cooking in grill, cooking on fire, cooking on the tandoor, I think is such a big cheat code. And when we do cook on the tandoor and cook with fire, what are we doing at that point is we take our ingredient and apply the first four tenets that I spoke about, which is spices, fats, the creams and the stocks, and of course the bhuna, to the ingredient before we actually go ahead and grill it. So it's like a double attack on flavor. And I guess it's a combination of all these techniques that have helped us draw umami from vegetables. And I think we give meat a tough competition any day of the week. So I mean, cooking like this, I would prefer jackfruit over, I don't know, a piece of chicken or a piece of pulled pork any day. And I hope you can start to think about these techniques a little bit and probably apply to some of the vegetables that you have around you. And let me know how it goes.
That was perfect. Thank you so much, Garima. I see now why you've earned that.
Trying to finish everything.
Yes, this knowledge, the way that you've cataloged the knowledge and kind of broken it down into these concepts is so expert and obviously shows your expertise as a chef. So thank you so much for sharing those insights with us.
Thank you for having me, guys. Hopefully I can talk more. If you ever see me in Bangkok, come and find me.
Indeed. Thank you so much. And now let's hop over to Colombo, Sri Lanka, where Darshan Unidasa brings an incredibly cosmopolitan outlook to his Ministry of Crab empire, spanning Shanghai, Manila, Mumbai, the Maldives, and Bangkok, in addition to the original outpost in Sri Lanka. He has not one, but 2 restaurants on Asia's 50 best restaurants list and has been recognized by the Japanese government for his efforts to promote Japanese culture overseas. Let's take a closer look at his signature garlic chili crab dish.
Hello from Sri Lanka. My name is Darshan Munidasa and I created Ministry of Crab together with my friends Kuma and Mahela 9 years ago. This restaurant is a celebration and respect of our amazing mud crabs that Singapore has been enjoying for too long, and that was the reason and inspiration to start this restaurant. These are Sri Lankan mud crabs and they've been going to Singapore for the last 40 years. This a 900-gram male, this a 1.4 kilo female crab. A lot of their flavor exists in their shells and these shells are really, really thick and strong. I'm going to make a garlic chili crab, which is a unique dish at Ministry of Crab. It's a very simple dish, not many components, very strong Japanese philosophies exist in this dish, where we try to extract the flavor of this crab into the liquid. I'm going to use olive oil, chopped onions and garlic, dry red chili flakes, chicken stock and some Japanese soy sauce. So Ministry of Crab has a unique cooking method. We use high pressure woks, we use Chinese woks made in Japan so that I can keep on buying the identical product every time. And we are using olive oil. So for this garlic chili crab, we use 300 ml of olive oil, chopped garlic and onion, I am cooking the 900-gram male crab. Out there in San Francisco, Bay Area, Napa, quite sure you can use Dungeness. I traveled once to San Francisco to try out to cook a Dungeness crab. The season got delayed, so I couldn't get there. And chicken stock. You just need enough liquid so that all the shells are almost submerged. Apart from the crabs, the main ingredient of this dish, the garlic chili crab, is our beloved chili flakes. So this is to personal preference. You're not trying to make it red, you're just trying to give it an accent. Cover it up and we should be done in about 12 minutes.
Soy sauce to taste.
And we are ready for plating. So even when plating, this is inspired from the Japanese tea ceremony, where every move is calculated and predetermined so that every dish leaves our kitchen in the same order. So that's the left hind leg, left forearm, right forearm, the right hind leg. This is made to order a la minute crab dish of Ministry of Crab. I hope you get to try this with Dungeness crab, and it's a bit lighter in flavor but still an amazing dish for you to make.
Amazing. Welcome to the stage, chef.
Good evening. and thank you for having me.
Thank you. So let's dive right into this dish, hearing a little bit more about this dish. Obviously, garlic chili crab, mostly associated with Singapore for many years. As you noted, Singapore kind of had the monopoly on this. How is the version that you do different from Singapore, and what was the inspiration for you to bring this back to Sri Lanka?
So I don't think for the last 40 years Singapore had a single crab in their waters. All the crab came from Sri Lanka, India, Indonesia, Philippines, all over. So that was the inspiration to create the restaurant. As for the garlic chili crab dish, that's an original. As Garima was speaking before, it has a lot to do with umami. And in this case, it's extracting the flavors of the crab. And when you use sea crustaceans versus poultry stock, or poultry stock with vegetable stock, you create interesting combinations and a flavor profile. So that's what this dish is all about. What I'm really, really proud is that Ministry of Crab, we would all the crabs are alive. We prep it to order. So the entire system of which crab goes to which table, how it's prepared, is something that we had to create. And the whole process is about 22 minutes. And this is serving about, say, 200 people a night. So about 100 crabs within 6 p.m. and 9:30, 3.5 hours. But the most amazing thing about our restaurant is that we are in a place where the ingredients are. And there are days that it rains too hard, we can't serve everybody, we have to stop taking reservations. We don't have a freezer, you can't cook frozen crabs. So there are so many precursors that we have accepted that we will not change, but to give you the best product.
That is amazing. I mean, and I'm glad you brought that up in terms of the scale that you're working on in your restaurant, and the fact that each of these crab dishes is cooked a la minute and on the scale and what you're talking about in terms of the fresh product coming in. And you've replicated that model across your other restaurants, right?
Yes. And I think when we started the restaurant, I made a statement on our menu that we are a no freezer restaurant. Mm-hmm. And many chefs came and said that there's no way you can run a restaurant without a freezer. And I said, I'm half Japanese, watch me. And it's true, like if you have ingredients this close to their natural habitat, by the time we get control of how they are stored, and we get to keep them alive without a problem for at least 48, 96 hours.
That's amazing. We've got some more questions, but I know we've got a second video from you with another recipe, and I want to make sure we're able to get to that. So let's bring up that second video featuring your prawn liver linguine, also taking advantage of the fresh seafood.
These are freshwater prawns from Sri Lankan lakes. There's a huge head, about 2/3 its size, and about 1/3 tail. Inside this head resides one of the most potent and amazing prawn livers. It's also called prawn butter, and it's almost akin to uni. So I'm going to use that to make a linguine. To make this prawn liver pasta, need some linguine, olive oil, chopped onion, chopped garlic, chili flakes, 2 healthy, amazing freshwater prawns, chicken stock, pecorino cheese, and healthy yolk, and some soy sauce. First, we are going to extract the liver. Hold it here and get this big shell out, the carcass of the prawn. Separate the stomach. And that's what we are looking for. I am going to use the remainder of the prawn, shells separately, and the tail separately. To a wok, some olive oil, 20 milliliters, teaspoon of garlic, and we start with the shells. I'm going to add about 50 ml and a pinch of chili flakes. Take the shells out. All we need is in this liquid. It's like a bisque but made a la minute. Slide the liver in there.
Whisk egg and pecorino cheese.
After you get the sauce to a nice, creamy, thick sauce, taste it, and you might have to add a few drops of soy sauce.
Add the linguine and stir.
All my kitchens, I've taught my staff how to use kitchen chopsticks. Chopsticks are amazing because you can actually feel resistance, textures, and tongs damage ingredient. So if you can, try to teach the next generation of chefs to use chopsticks. With the 2 prawn tails, I just grilled it over charcoal and with some sea salt. In Japanese it's called shoyaki, and it's an amazing testament to how seafood can taste great when cooked so simply. Sliced it, simply place it on top, and I have a dish here that has used that prawn from nose to tail.
That was amazing. Thank you for that dish. Is there anything you want to tell us more about the prawn liver linguine or how it's served in your restaurant?
Yeah, so I'm half Japanese, and being in Sri Lanka, we have this amazing country with so much beautiful rivers, lakes, seas, and not far away from us. So from childhood, we've been seeing all these ingredients. I think my brother and I, as kids, we used to go fishing. We would dissect stuff with penknives on the boat, on the sea, have it as sashimi, etc. So all that knowledge from childhood is playing a part right now. No one dissects a prawn to extract its liver, and it's an amazing flavor. It's really hard to describe it, but it's very heavy, deep. You need a heavy burgundy. Bordeaux may be too strong. But so when you cook with a Japanese mindset, you are actually dissecting stuff. We have 300 knives to do everything. We have different graters to grate every single thing differently. So we have these tiny tools to do this tiny detailed stuff, and that's how I think we look at dissecting a prawn. This prawn especially has a huge head. It's about 2/3 of the head, and in that grows this huge liver. I think 20 years ago, many hotels in Sri Lanka refused to buy that prawn because it was less tail, but they did not know what goes in there. And the cousin, at Ministry of Crab, we do serve a crab liver pate. Again, it's only about 1% of the crab weight. Again, paying attention to detail, small details, and we extract that and we make something great. I think if you look at Japanese yakitori, we use every part of the chicken. So this is my representation of that.
I love that. I love, just watching the video, not entirely knowing what was coming. You kind of think of, oh, it's going to be prawns. And there is so little time spent on the actual flesh of the prawn because you're putting the focus on those extracting the flavor from the shells and using that liver, as you said, in this way. So the dish is really less about the flesh of the prawn, as most people are used to thinking of prawns, but actually like the whole rest of the animals, so to speak.
Yes.
That's amazing.
We have, like that.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, crustaceans have serious flavor coming from the shells, and the nature of their shells dictate all that. So next time you have a crab, just compare between a thick shell crab and a less thick shell crab, lagoon versus marine.
And actually, going back to the crab for a second, we had a question about what kind of chili flakes you were using in the garlic chili crab.
From Sri Lanka, dried red chili. Again, Ministry of Crab, apart from the olive oil and the wines, everything's from Sri Lanka. So
and that is really interesting that you've brought in that olive oil kind of, to watch your cooking and to be using that olive oil. How do you feel that that olive oil flavor sort of plays into the other flavors that you're building in there?
I think olive oil is magical. It does something that I cannot replicate with any other oil. Being in Sri Lanka, we have coconut oil. I mean, I've had everyone asking me, why don't you use coconut oil? And I've tried it, but it's not the same. So yeah, olive oil is magical.
That is wonderful. Unfortunately, we are magically out of time already, but thank you so much for joining us, Chef. I know it's later in Sri Lanka than it is here, so we're going to let you go off and enjoy your glass of wine over there. You got it. I know you've got it ready to go. Exactly. So thank you again.
Cheers, everybody.
And now we are jumping over to Ethiopia with Yohannes Gabriesus, whose cookbook, Ethiopia, Recipes and Traditions from the Horn of Africa, won awards from both the James Beard Foundation as well as IACP. Ethiopian food has actually recently become one of my favorite go-tos for delivery food during this quarantine. So I'm super excited to have Yohannes here to talk more about the 3,000-year-old culture and history that underpins this unique cuisine. Hi there, Yohannes.
Hey, Jacqueline. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and to talk a bit more about Ethiopia, the book, and of course the country and its cuisine. As Jacqueline said a few seconds ago, Ethiopia has more than 3,000 years of history, which allowed us to preserve a lot of things. It's one of the few countries in Africa that's never been colonized, so we're very lucky to still have our own alphabets, our own culture, fashion, every aspect of an artistic expression you'd find it in Ethiopia. In regards to food, it's a country where various factors such as politics, climate, religion, and so many other factors like people coming in from all over the world that shaped our cuisine to be what it is today. In terms of cuisine, what makes ours special is a big plethora of vegetarian dishes, especially that were created for the fasting season. Fasting season in Ethiopia is about 220 days out of the year, so you can imagine we had to be quite creative with that. Another factor would be wars, politics. Because of our history and because of various rulers who wanted to control bigger space, war actually influenced our cuisine in a way that we actually eat raw meat. It's a delicacy in Ethiopia. You actually get cuts. You see it displayed in the various restaurants across the city. And that comes from war legacy, basically. People were hiding, so they had to avoid from making fire, any food scent and smoke. So they were eating raw, spiced basically, so that they can preserve it through time. But that legacy comes from that. Another one would be the climate. So Ethiopia is a big country, and with the lowest sea level, under sea level actually. The lowest location inhabited in the world is in Ethiopia. It's called Afar, around Ertale. That brings this various type of climate actually bring various type of approach to cuisine. When you go to Afar, there's no way you can actually leave food outside. It would spoil immediately. So they each found their own way of preserving food, of handling food. and one that really impressed me throughout my travel for a TV show I had in the past was a story I heard and a recipe I actually saw in Lalibela. It's a sacred city, and they make this oat bread, very flat oat bread, and to create an exploded bubble texture on top of the bread, they gather kids around the griddle, and kids whistle, and by whistling, the sound vibration helps create that texture. And I thought that was a very impressive know-how that was developed because of climate. The recipe I'm showing you today is a very simple recipe, which was found also in the book. The reason I decided to show you this recipe is because it's a meal known by every Ethiopian, consumed at least once a day. It's a peasant dish that rose to become an Ethiopian identity, and I think is a very special dish. It's one of my favorites as well. It's called shiro. It's chickpea flour mixed with spices, and you get to see it in the video when we cue it in a few minutes. And it's eaten on injera. Injera is flatbread made out of teff. Teff is a tiny grain, glutenless. That is now a trend in Hollywood. Maybe you've heard of it. And that crepe basically serves to hold all the stews, and at the same time to be part of the food that we use as our utensils at the same time. So basically, you just make small bites out of that and you eat together. One last thing that I think is very important to consider about Ethiopia and its cuisine, it's how food is consumed. The consumption of food is very special and unique in Ethiopia, where everyone eats around a big circular plate. Basically, you eat what's available, so you promote a certain type of human values like sharing, caring, honesty, respect. And I think it's something important that we're forgetting in this technological world. So I invite everyone to discover a bit about Ethiopia, this very unique country where coffee was discovered. I had to say that. So I really hope you get to try the recipe. It's a very simple recipe, and I'm sure everyone will name it. And we're going to cue it now.
We're starting off with a very simple process of toasting first the chickpea flour with the spices. So this is the cardamom powder, the ajowan, which I think is a very essential spice for Ethiopian cuisine. Berbere, of course, which is inevitable, which is the most important Ethiopian spice, obviously. And some nigella, which we usually add to bread, but also add it to this recipe. So right now what we're going to do is add the flour, toast it a little bit. This is about 65 grams of flour. This will allow you to do enough meal for 3 to 4 people. So we're going to toast it for a few seconds, and as soon as we start smelling a nice aroma of toasted flour, then we're going to start adding the spices and continue toasting it for a few seconds. So we have 1 tablespoon of berbere, which will change the color to a more orange flour, and pretty much add the rest. On another note, one of the main reasons I actually wanted to show you how shiro is made is because it's a dish eaten by every class. So this is a peasant dish that ended up being an Ethiopian identity, and I think it's very important to celebrate that. So once we have the flour and the spices mixed and toasted and smelling really nice, then we're gonna hit some oil. Any oil would do, any unscented one, is preferred. Heat that up, and we're gonna basically sweat the onion, all the humidity, that's all we want. So in the making of chorizo, traditionally there's a lot of wet spices added before it's actually taken to the mill to be powders. We're adding some fresh vegetables so that we can revive some of the spices within the flour, and I think it's gonna give it a very nice taste rather than just cooking the flour. Garlic, ginger, and that's pretty much it. It's all about controlling the heat. See, we don't need much onion, garlic, and ginger. This is just to revive the taste of the spices, since we're not using any wet spice in the making of this flour. Once we have this, it's just about mixing the flour and the vegetables for a few seconds and avoid coloring it. What we're going to do is right now add some water. The trick in doing a nice chorizo is using the right amount of water as well. Too much will just start making a lot of bubbles, and before it cooks, you just get tired of spinning it around and not cooking it enough. But if you use just the right amount of liquid, then the process will be much easier, cleaner, and tastier. So I feel like right now it's a bit thick, so I'll add some more water. Now I have a nice texture. I'm just making sure I don't have any lumps. See, nice orange color. All the mixture has been done. Now it's just about letting it cook. So it takes about 10 to 15 minutes to cook properly. So to cook means making sure that all the chickpea flour is cooked throughout, and that will give something sweet at the end. Just make sure it doesn't taste like flour. That's pretty much it. This is as simple as it gets. And now it's time to let it cook. The chorizo is done. The only thing we're doing now is adding some spiced clarified butter. We're just gonna scent it really nicely and give it that extra buttery shine. Oh, this smells so nice. So as you saw, this is a very simple recipe. The whole trick in making this is just letting the chorizo flour cook and cook well. You know it's cooked once there's oil coming out, and we say in Amharic "kabat tafa." It means that the stew or the chorizo just spits all the fat out, and that's how you actually know it's ready. So once the chorizo is ready, we're gonna layer it. We're gonna put it on injera. You actually find this in the book as well, how to prepare this. Keep in mind that we use a traditional yeast, just like sourdough, which means you'll get better results the more you try it and the more you develop these healthy bacteria within your kitchen. Traditionally, we eat injera layered like this. Several layers was back in the days during the feudal time. Nowadays, it follows more the communism regime, which brought a lot of ration, which means everything was cut like this. So I'm showing you how that's done, so that not to spoil the whole food. And basically, this is it. Beyond the taste factor, I think Ethiopian cuisine has a lot to offer to the world, especially in terms of lifestyle and how we live with one another. Ethiopian food is consumed around a circular platter where everyone's invited to share, and certain human values are transcend this, and I believe those are respect, caring, sharing, and this is basically how it's eaten by hand. where we form a gusha, which means a bite. Make sure not to put any on your fingers, and voila, my favorite dish.
That was amazing. Thank you so much, Johannes. A reminder again, if you have specific questions for Johannes, I feel like my question is, how do I get it so that the food doesn't get on my fingers? How can I navigate that injera more expertly to not get food on my fingers? He's going to be in the Meet the Author booth over in the Sessions tab on the left in just a bit. Thank you so much to Darshan and Garima as well for joining us this morning to talk about how they push the boundaries of flavor. And now I'm going to turn it over back to Anne McBride.
Thank you, Jackie. And my copy of Johannes' book. It's very marked up, and I really, really recommend that everyone gets it because it's a truly wonderful book. Before offering some concluding remarks about this summit, I want to quickly run through the logistics of the break that will start at 1 Eastern and 10 Pacific. As we've mentioned, we have a Meet the Author session, and you can ask Johannes lots more questions. We'll also have a pop-up session on independent restaurants as the heartbeat of our community. And don't forget to share your audio and video to join the screen for all of those. Your last chance to spend 4 minutes with a stranger, at least as sanctioned by CIA. Today's networking topic is, what's the most creative restaurant shift that you've seen in the last several months? During the Sponsor Expo, you can visit the booth of our wonderful sponsors who are making it possible to offer this program for free. So thank you for supporting them. Here's a preview of what they have prepared for you during the break and the final reception after the cook-along. And of course, your last chance to win registration and travel to next year's conference in Napa by participating in each of the networking opportunities and other cool prizes. I hope that you enjoyed this week of inspiration and these journeys around the world that our generous presenters took us on. As the chat was abuzz with longing for travels past, it was equally energizing to see you all plan future trips. We know that we'll get back to Brazil and Nigeria and France and Japan and Thailand and Uganda and Spain. We know that we'll be able to welcome back guests inside of restaurants in full safety and confidence again. We know we'll be able to feed employees who work in offices again. We know we'll be able to fill students in university cafeterias. We know we'll be able to teach in the same room as our students. But this is not the end of the road in our fight against the pandemic, and the months ahead will continue to brutally beat us down. We know that too many in our industry will not make it without dedicated assistance from the government. And let me make a bipartisan request here for you all to call your representatives and urge them to pass the Restaurant Act of 2020, which would establish a $120 billion fund specifically for relief for our industry. As we think about our future, though, and for most immediate mental health survival, it is key to continue looking for inspiration and creativity. You heard throughout the week from people who've used this time to refine their creative process, from Mauro Colagreco finding deeper inspiration in his garden and switching to a lunar cycle menu, to Katie Button appreciating having the time, finally, to perfect one dish. Chefs who for years fed mostly tourists and expats rediscovered their most immediate community and realized how much they actually love feeding locals. As is typical of chefs, being idle has not been an option, and taking care of others is second nature. So we've also heard from many chefs who have turned their skills to serving those who have nothing and finding new meaning in their work in the process. An appreciation of a more quiet and simple life, even if it's been forced on us, has also been a common trait this week. Even when it seems impossible, let's continue looking for these gifts. Let's continue looking for ways to sustain ourselves creatively when reality is just a little too frightening. Let's continue escaping to the street food stalls of Accra or the markets of Bangkok virtually. Let's dig deep in cookbooks until we can hit the road again. Let's volunteer. Let's practice that one dish that has eluded us until we perfect it. Let's go plant something for the hope it provides. This week, all of our presenters and all of you through your engagement have planted such seeds of positivity and optimism. I'm personally so grateful for it. And this is a good segue to take the time to thank everyone involved in this conference and planting seeds for the next few months. Please show lots of love in the chat for all of the sponsors who made this conference possible. 60% of you are first-time attendees, in no small part because our sponsors made it possible to offer this program tuition-free. So please support them, visit them again during the break and reception, and of course, buy their products. More love and gratitude for all of our presenters who have joined us from all corners of the globe this week, some in the middle of the night, and have showed extraordinary generosity in extraordinary times. Go visit them when you travel to their cities in the future. And please shower the team that operates behind the scene and makes everything possible, notably Christina Adamson, Shara Oram, and Caitlin Petruccelli. They do not know the word impossible. And the room hosts you've met in breakout sessions or Meet the Authors, Tony, Patty, Katie, Kelsey, Casey, I promise you we don't do that on purpose, and Anissa are all from our small but mighty and mightily talented team. So give them some love too. And more thanks for Claudia, Chad, and Evan, who handle our broadcast, video postings, and IT issues. And of course, you deserve all the thanks for having spent the week with us, having asked such thoughtful questions, having been so engaged on this platform, and having braved this weird new world with us. I'll remind you once again that you can find all of the videos, presentations, recipes at worldsofflavor.com, accessible with the password you've received by email. And a slideshow with top takeaways from the week will also be posted there in coming days. We would love to know what you thought of the conference, so please fill out the evaluation you can find at this link, which you will also receive via email. And we look forward to seeing you next on this screen in April for the 2021 Global Plan Forward Culinary Summit, which will be virtual. We look even more forward to seeing you in person at Menus of Change in Hyde Park, June 22nd to 24th, 2021. And in Napa, at long last, in person, November 3rd through the 5th for the 2021 Worlds of Flavor, our 23rd Worlds of Flavor, Cities of the Americas. And here's how you can stay in touch with us in the meantime. We look forward to reposting your nons and P-Days from the cook-along and keeping up with you throughout the year. Stay with us after the networking break for the cook-along, which will bring to shame even the best episode of the Great British Bake Off. Your nons and P-Days will never be the same after you've cooked alongside Chandra Ram and Lauren Nalick. And get ready to show what you are cooking. We'll bring the most adventurous among you on screen. And Michael out there is already posted his dough on Instagram, so some of you are definitely cooking along, and it's great to see. All right, and now we have fireworks for you. Fireworks! So go enjoy the 20-minute networking break, and we'll see you back in the cook-along at 10:20 Pacific, 1:20 Eastern. Click on sessions on the left to join us for that. Have fun and meet lots of people.